For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber. I don't know where Derek Evans is, but hopefully he'll be back here soon. It's Friday, and it's yet another glorious day in America's new golden age, and we've got a lot to discuss. And sorry we missed the last few days. I've been up in Chicago. Wednesday, we were having equipment problems in the morning and just couldn't get things started. And yesterday, we were at an event just way too late. And by the time we got up in the morning, we weren't prepared to do a show.
Yeah, and sorry about that, guys. I have my wife is gone. I got two little boys here at the house who were trying to take a hammer to my wall, so I was having to stop them. They're trying to put a picture up, and they're not qualified to do that. The oldest is 5 years old, so I had to jump in really quick. But anyways, guys, as Mike said, happy to be back here on the show. We got an awesome show lineup for you guys here today. As always, guys, like, share, subscribe, all those good things. If you've hopped in the comments, I'll read all the comments, and then I'll do my very best to give you guys a shout out. I've missed anything that was maybe said in the X chat because it doesn't show what was previously said because I just got it opened up because I was dealing with my kids. So hop back in the chat. Would love to give you guys a shout out. And with that, guys, we have an awesome show lineup for you guys here today.
Oh, yeah, and we're going to start with some breaking good news before we get to even more good news. Then we're going to get to the rest of the insanity. Gasoline just broke $1.98 a gallon, lowest in years. Groceries and eggs down. Energy down, mortgage rates down, employment strong, and much more good news as billions of dollars pour in from tariffs. Just like I said, and we're only in the transition stage, just getting started. Consumers have been waiting for years to see prices coming down. No inflation. The Fed should lower its rate. Donald John Trump, DJT. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, first I want to get some shout outs because I usually do this earlier. Shout out to Dan Dreyer and Kelly Song over here in the Rumble chat. We've got Sean in the Getter chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. You know, man, it is really impressive when you really think about everything that President Trump's done and just the economy. I mean, that we could probably spend hours talking about everything he's accomplished so far in the first 100 days. But I mean, just the economy alone, the fact that the price of eggs are down as much as they are, gas is down as much as it is. I mean, these are things that it is essentially a pay raise for people, for middle-class families who are, struggling, or senior citizens and stuff on fixed incomes. This is basically a pay increase when you lower the cost of essential things such as this. And the fact that he was able to do it so quickly, it really begs the question, is President Trump this good, or was the Biden administration literally going out of their way attempting to make things harder for the everyday American? And I think it's a mixture of both, for the record. But that's where my head goes when I think about this.
I think the Democrats are clearly rooting for more pain, for more price increases, for downturns in the economy. We know that they want They want Americans impacted in negative ways because they think somehow it'll help them politically. I don't think that message is working anymore. And yeah, I saw these gas prices firsthand yesterday when I was driving back from Chicago. I had to fill up along the way home. I paid $2.12 a gallon. When I left just a few days before that, I think I paid around $2.50, $2.55, $2.60. So I mean, prices coming down this much is huge. Like I remember, like during COVID, that was like one of the few good things to come out of it is gas getting down to like $1.15 a gallon. You know, we're probably not going to see that again. That's not necessarily realistic. That was just due to the glut and supply when everybody was forced to stay home. But this is huge. Getting, like you said, getting essentials back under control or even lower than they were at any point during the Biden regime is huge, because now that is like saving money. It cuts down your weekly necessary expenses, and it means you can you have more free cash to invest in the economy, to fix things that you put off for a while. This is huge, and don't expect it to get much attention at all.
Yeah, and Kelly Song over in the Rumble chat says, "Where's that $1.98 per gallon for gasoline? It's $2.89 per gallon in Central Maryland. It's still over $2 here in West Virginia as well." So I think where he's, and I don't know this, I didn't do a whole lot of research. I'm assuming that is not the average. That's probably like the lowest price across the country somewhere. And you got to remember, each state has their own individual tax on the gallon of gas that they charge each state. So it's definitely a huge price difference depending on what state you're in. Either way, the prices are definitely at the very minimum stabilized across the country. But right now, I also saw a thing from Secretary of Energy Chris Wright interview yesterday where he mentioned that we are currently in the process of refilling up our strategic petroleum reserves. And I would imagine once we get those filled up, if we're continuing to produce oil and pump oil and drill at the same rate, then that's going to start drastically dropping the price even more, because now we've got the reserves filled up and it's a supply and demand issue basically. So then that oil that's currently going to fill up the strategic reserve will go back into the everyday market, if you will, and it's going to that I think that is when we're going to see a drastic drop instantaneously almost that everyone will notice across the board.
Well, yeah, as the reserve fills up, that means the U.S. government won't be buying, and that means the price will drop even further. And yeah, to your point, state gas taxes are going to prop this up. You're only going to see the lowest of low prices in the states with the least amount of state tax on gasoline. But also, it's going to probably take a few days to filter out everywhere, because the price that you're paying at the pump is based on what they paid for their last delivery of fuel, essentially. So if they paid the equivalent of $2.50 a gallon for what they're still have on the pumps now, they're only going to adjust that down to where they're making whatever their minimum profit level is. So yeah, it's going to take a few days to filter out, but the good news is things are headed in the right direction everywhere across the board. This is our main story here today. April jobs unexpectedly jumped by 177,000, higher than all estimates. The other good news was these jobs are almost exclusively from the private sector. These aren't government jobs. Those are still continuing decreases as more and more people are let go from the Fed. Now, when you factor in state jobs and everything else, I believe what the report showed was these were 90% or 91% private sector jobs and around 10% government jobs. But like I said, that includes state level positions.
What's amazing too is you got to remember all the jobs that all the government jobs that have been cut by President Trump, and so you would think that the jobs report would be much lower due to the cut of tens of thousands of government jobs. That's how Biden propped up a lot of his. Well, they counted people going back to work from COVID as a job created by Biden, number one. But number two, then they also had all these government jobs. And so these are actual, primarily, as you just pointed out, private sector jobs, good paying jobs. I would imagine you're going to see a lot of construction jobs probably in the next one, I would imagine, or the one after here in the next little bit, as they start to build these plants and stuff from these investments of these companies that are coming back to America or coming to America for the first time. So I think you'll see a lot of that. But once again, either way, it is much higher than what they were expecting. And this is quite frankly why a lot of people, I love President Trump, but there's a lot of people who simply don't like President Trump's personality. I love it. It's one of my favorite things about him. But there's a lot of people who don't, who still voted for him based on his business mentality and knowledge, and that is what we're seeing here in terms of that is just his business mindset of able to run our country like a business and bring these jobs and everything back to our country. And I think a lot of it's just hope. I think a lot of it is companies now have hope again, and there's like a 4-year future of like, we know we're not going to be messed with, in certain industries for the next 4 years, so we can invest again. Whereas under the Biden administration, they had to be a little cautious because it's like we might get halfway through and then they're going to pull permits because of some weird salamander they find in the in the soil there.
Some other 3-inch fish that we've got to stop, kick the humans out of the area to save the Delta smelt. These retards in California. One last little note on this jobs chart, because I was just reading through, glance at the story again. So there was also stating that the only reason the government jobs made up close to 10% of it was you have states and local areas right now hiring for seasonal positions like lifeguards at pools, people to do forestry management, that kind of stuff. So that's part of the reason for this spike up, or these are jobs that run, approximately the next 6 months that are normal seasonal government positions, like technically your lifeguards at all your public pools and things like that. We also have this. And again, don't expect to get much coverage on this anywhere. China quietly walks back a quarter of U.S. import tariffs amid economic crunch. So we've talked about how they were going to remove the tariff from ethane so their plastics industry doesn't completely implode, since 100 million people depend on that one chemical. I still think Trump ought to, if they're going to remove the tariff, then we need to put an excise tax on it, make them still pay the price for all the cheap goods they manufacture there. But yeah, China is in the middle of a giant propaganda campaign across TikTok. They're basically trying to convince the American people, really targeting younger people, that China has the resolve to withhold these evil tariffs from the imperialist Donald Trump. But the reality is they don't. Their own people are already freaking out. There's already protests in the street. There's people leaving the major cities, going back to areas they came from on rural parts of China. It's had a much, much, much bigger impact than any of the anybody in the dinosaur media is reporting, because they're pro-China and anti-US. So they're trying to create a feeling among the American people that this is an unwinnable battle and we should just surrender now before we suffer any kind of financial cost for cheap goods that are produced in China. They're also trying to mislead people to make you think that this is going to affect food prices or even toilet paper. I watched a video last night where they were trying to scare people into going out and stocking up on toilet paper again. We don't buy any toilet paper from China. So again, this is it's just insanity. But the fact of the matter is, our media should be covering this right now, telling people the truth, but they're not. Instead, they're in China's camp. It's disgusting.
Well, the toilet paper shortage of the COVID scamdemic is still one of the greatest mysteries to me as to how it's fascinating. Anyways, no, this is excellent news. We covered this, as you said, for weeks, even before China actually ended up dropping the stuff on ethane. And so we've been covering it for a while. I'm with you. I'm sure President Trump's thought about it. Maybe he's holding that back as another way to, as the tariff negotiations move forward of, oh, well, then I can also play this card. And maybe I'm assuming that's probably what he's doing on that. But yeah, 100% China. And we've been talking about it I'm not really feeling anything. I guess I don't buy a whole lot of things from China, surprisingly. But whatever people are feeling here in America is being felt probably 100-fold in China in terms of this trade war right now. And here's the thing. President Trump has basically, I don't want to say bullied because that's not the right word, but has basically told every other country out there too, like, you're not going to trade with China and us. You have to choose one. And obviously they're going to choose us because we are the world superpower, economically speaking. There's no debate about that. And so we are hurting them, not just in the trade tariff or the trade war with us, but we've now got other countries to kind of choose sides, and they're all choosing us, obviously. So China is really, really hurting right now.
Yeah. And just put a bow on this story real quick. So China now is being accused of holding several like production managers, officials from other country, from different businesses. They're not allowing them to leave, essentially holding them hostage. They're doing the same to Apple's chip manufacturing equipment that is within China that they use to put together iPhones, laptops, and some of their other things. They're not letting them move it to India because because they're going to move the bulk of their production out of China to India to produce phones there to avoid the tariffs that are facing any products coming from China. And they're also trying to strong arm other companies into continuing production there instead of moving it back, either by holding on to equipment, now trying to tie them up in court over intellectual property rights. Suddenly they care about that, even though they, again, have a reputation for stealing intellectual property from every country on earth. Now suddenly they're afraid companies are going to steal their intellectual property, which I still haven't figured out how that works. But yeah, it's a disaster. I think Xi Jinping, I think, may be forced to step down in the next few weeks, especially if this isn't under control. If they start having like real riots within their cities, or I'm sure you guys have seen the videos where the trains in the streets, it just looks like a ghost town, even in Beijing and a lot of their major cities and their manufacturing base. This has been bad, and it's only going to get worse. The fact that they're now removing tariffs off other goods that were imported from the U.S. from like microchips and other essentials for production, this just shows how bad it is, and they can't take any more job losses. They're already well over their limit. They completely rely on being able to export products overseas. That's what we used to do. They're upset that this is having the impact that it is, and that we're not backing down. So we need to hold the line. We can't back down now.
So also I saw where Apple has announced that they're making every single iPhone eventually, like they're transitioning to that. Every single iPhone will be made in India now, outside of China. That is a huge blow to China, long-term speaking wise. And then that's in addition to, I believe, 19 billion chips that are set to be made in the United States of America in terms of these chips and things. So absolutely, we are hurting them economically. I'll say something. I haven't even really thought about it. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. It entered my head as you were discussing there. Is I do wonder though, with us backing them into a corner economically speaking, we know they've been circling Taiwan and a couple other places. And we know that historically speaking, war has helped bring people out of depressions and economic, turn the economy. It's kind of fake, but it definitely puts a Band-Aid over it. You almost have to wonder though, does this entice them to go after Taiwan or something else in terms of because as you said, Xi Jinping is in a situation where the noise is going to start getting louder there in China as all these things continue to shut down. Will that be something he does not only for economically speaking, but to distract his people and to show his people that China is still strong, if you will, under his leadership? Haven't heard anybody really discussing that or thinking about it. It's just something to keep in the back of our minds as this thing progresses.
Well, that's a good point. And, I think we are very likely to see something like that, especially if this continues even for just another couple weeks. Because, like I said, there's a lot of heat on him. He's already had to disappear a lot of people from the CCP that were critical of him, restructure their military. He wanted to make sure there wasn't a possibility of essentially a soft coup from the inside. And that may be what they use to distract the people, especially if we start seeing job losses there at, say 200 million. I mean, 100 million is bad enough. You think about, well, what would you do with 100 million unemployed people here all of a sudden? Well, even cut it down so it's in comparison. Say 50 million, 30 million even lost their jobs. It would be the only thing that we heard about. And forget the media's coverage of it. It would be the only thing people were talking about, even if the media was just completely ignoring it. So it's that undertow that they're worried about now. So yeah, you're right. Taiwan, I'm sure the bullseye on their back is getting bigger and bigger right now as he's looking for distractions from this tariff war that even the Chinese people are seeing that they are losing, and the longer they stay in this position, the more harm it's going to do to their country and their economy. And I'm there for it. I think that this is our one opportunity to completely crush this monster and get them back under control and end what they've the theft of intellectual property, theft of jobs, knockoff goods, to finally put the nail in the coffin of that activity from China once and for all.
Dan Dreyer in the Rumble chat. Well, first of all, Kelly says that she will never get tired of all this winning. I have to agree. Dan says that towns in China along the Mongolian border are revolting after massive layoffs due to plants being shut down over tariffs. And That's fascinating, and it makes sense as to why China, after being in this, as Dan says, in the stalemate for weeks, are now wanting to speak. So very, very interesting stuff. I want to give a quick shout out over here in the X chat to Jodsters, Smash, Thaddeus, and Terry. Appreciate you guys for being here. Thaddeus says China can't take much more. Very little pain here so far. I have to agree. And Terry says we're all here for it, which I have to agree with that as well. So, things are looking good over here.
And I have heard about the towns, especially some of these, like basically they call them factory towns, where you might have one giant employer, like say Foxconn from Apple, in what was formerly a rural area, where that was where everybody worked, except for a few people that might work at the supermarket and whatever else they have in the city, and they are in just total revolt. They're refusing to cooperate with police. They're out in the streets protesting, and a lot of the younger people, like people under say 25, maybe 30 years old in China, that they're refusing to go back to work. They're kind of like dropping out of the workforce, and that's the other big concern is what will happen when the jobs do come back. Will they have the people to continue to fill them, or are people going to sit on their hands and protest because of how they've been treated, essentially as slaves for the last several years and decade in China? And they want real reforms. They are real wages and real protection, stuff that we take for granted. Got to remember, a lot of these people are 7 days a week, 12, 14, 16 hours a day in a factory putting your iPhones together. They're slaves, and they're doing it for little to no money. Guys, we got to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with even more.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the programs here on X American News is by supporting our sponsors. You can go to MyPillow or My Store right now. Use code Insurrection. You'll get the deepest discounts, and you'll be supporting Mike Lindell, all his employees at MyPillow, and all the American businesses that you can buy their products on My Store. Again, we want to keep jobs here at home. We want to take these cards away from China. And this is a good way to do that and support Mike, especially as right now he's back in the media crosshair since he's going to run against Tampon Tim in Minnesota. So, guys, again, use code Insurrection at MyPillow and MyStore.com. You can help us out. And by the way, guys, we're going to have a couple of new sponsors joining us on Monday. I'm really excited about, but you'll hear more about that then. Let's go ahead and jump to our next story, because we can't just keep bashing China all morning. We've got judges to bash, too. Democrats sink to new low. Now they're defending illegal alien human smuggling stash houses. And some of these stories, I just can't even believe that they would step to some of these lows. That now they're saying, that's better than having ICE deport them back to their home countries, having these people smuggled around. A lot of them are being sexually abused, or they're literally being sex trafficked. But they think that's better than having ICE arrest them and send them back to where they came from, and unburdening the American people with taking care of all these invaders.
Believe it or not, I actually love that the Democrats are doing this. And the reason why is those of us on this show, people watching the show, I would say that the vast majority of the people who hear my voice right now, whatever platform you're on, have already known that the Democrats do these sorts of things. This is who the Democrat Party has become. I'm not saying every single person across the country registered as a Democrat. I'm talking about the upper levels of the Democrat Party. This is what they stand for now. But the issue is they have done a really, really good job of gaslighting people, of pretending, that they're not supporting these things while it's obvious that they are. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but now they are literally just being so brazen and just saying the quiet part out loud, and they're just being just open and honest about it, which actually I respect them in that regard for it, finally doing this. and what is happening now is there are so many people across this country who are being red pilled. It's really fascinating if you think about it. I have people that, they all know I'm really into politics. People I've never spoken politics with before who have reached out to me and be like, dude, I cannot believe that and these are Democrats. I can't believe what the Democrat Party, or their family, I should say, at the very least, has been historically Democrats, because I know them. They can't believe it. And I'm over here, I'm like, dude, I've been trying to tell you guys this that's what I'm thinking in my head. I don't say that, but I'm thinking, we've been trying to tell you guys this for years now. But it's just showing that their actions are opening the eyes of everyday average Joe Americans. Think about your neighbor who goes to work, comes home, turns on the ball game, and doesn't even pay attention, probably doesn't even know who their representative is. Those people are now, for the first time, really facing and accepting the reality that their grandfather's Democrat Party no longer exists.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they've gone full communist, and that's what people are really starting to see. Like, again, to go back to this border event that we just covered, that'll run here on X American News this weekend. We'll have it on tomorrow, actually. I just don't quite know what time yet. But, the Black and Hispanic community in Chicago came out in full force, and this was after... and we let everybody know why they had to do a venue change. And this is because of terrorist threats from Antifa. They were calling the venue owner. They're posting death threats to him and his family on Facebook, online, whatever. And eventually the first venue backed down just because of the amount of pressure on the number of threats that they were getting to employees and elsewhere. So we had to move it to a different venue, and we still had a packed house. But this is what people are starting to see. It's waking up these the Black and Hispanic communities in Chicago and around the country, that they're seeing that Democrats don't care about them. They're the invaders are the new hotness. So they're now completely ignoring the needs of the other communities that they've catered to for decades now. So yeah, putting it on full display is great, and it just keeps getting worse. Their hypocrisy seems to know no ends, and that's just waking up more and more people.
Absolutely. I want to give some shout outs over here in the Getter chat really quick. We got Sean, we got Obliviously, we got Emmanuel, and we've got Maven. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Emmanuel says, I've been following your content for a while now and just now hopping in the comments. So, man, thank you so much. It's awesome. We love hearing from people in the comments. You guys really, honestly, I'm not just saying this. You guys help the show and shape the show more than you guys could ever imagine. And, like Dan Dreyer and Kelly Song, for instance, and Thaddeus in the X chat. These people have been in the chat for so long now that, like, when I see their names, I literally smile a genuine smile, because I feel like it's a friend, and I've grown to trust you guys when you bring comments and information into the chat. Over the months and years or whatever, I've realized, okay, I can trust these people and what they're saying. And so I really, really appreciate it more than you guys could imagine. But back to that. Look, the Democrat Party, Sean says that was him 30 years ago. I think that was probably me, probably 15, 20 years ago as well. In thinking about this, but in all honestly, though, a lot of this happened post Obama. If you go back and look at the video clips of Hillary Clinton when she ran against Obama in that 2008 original primary, she's saying, she might be more MAGA than President Trump is back then. I mean, she's literally saying you got to deport these people. All of these things that we're all saying today. And now all of a sudden, the Democrat Party, I guess, has just been hijacked and overtaken by the left-wing extremist version of it. And I believe I kept saying that there was a civil war going on within the Democrat Party. I believe that the civil war is already over with. I believe that there's still some people trying to hold on to the old school Democrat values, but overall, that I believe the left-wing extremists have already won that civil war within the Democrat Party.
Yeah, it's probably kind of hard for them to hold on to those values when the party just calls them racist for their historic values. We also have this. Whoa, Laura Loomer uncovers a massive conflict of interest involving race-baiting federal judge who ordered border agents to not detain illegal aliens without a warrant, which that by itself is insane. But yeah, so apparently her husband is a slumlord, owns a bunch of duplexes, and his primary tenants are illegal aliens. And apparently also relies on them for for work, for construction. I didn't quite catch how that worked, though. I read through the article earlier, but yeah. So, yet again, we see a conflict of interest. A judge that shouldn't have taken this case at all, should have recused herself. And again, if had this been the opposite and this was a Trump-appointed judge and they gave him a favorable ruling, this would be the only thing you heard in the media right now, that this judge should have recused themselves, and that this is clearly the wrong decision, blah, 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 all the usual. This is an insider. This is Trump manipulating the justice system. But no, when it's a Democrat doing this and they have a clear conflict of interest, that's who they want on the case. That's the perfect person for it. Why would we even say anything otherwise?
I'll tell you another thing that they should look into on this is the illegals are going to pay with cash as well. And so now the landlord can claim whatever he wants to in terms of what he's collecting in rent or not collecting in rent. And I'm a landlord and I've never rented to illegals, but I've been approached multiple times with them willing to pay, 20 to 30% more than what I was charging for the unit to rent to them. And I still said no. But I think that's something else they need to look into there. Look, I don't understand how anyone could say that Border Patrol needs a warrant to arrest someone invading our country. Like, if that's the case, what's the point of even having Border Patrol? Like, what would be the point of even just so they can give them water as they're coming across the desert to make sure that they don't, like that they're comfortable as they invade our country. Like, what would be the point of Border Patrol if you can't arrest somebody without a warrant? That makes zero sense.
Maybe we ought to just play the game with them. We need a judge to issue a universal warrant for anyone in the country illegally, and then they can just carry copies of that around. This judge can go pound sand.
There we go. Well, the other thing is, like, look, American citizens get arrested without a warrant every single day.
Yeah.
And you should, like, if the police sees you, visually watches you commit a crime, they don't have to wait and go get a warrant from a judge and come back and hope you're still there where you were, stealing or whatever, breaking and entering, hope you're still there when the judge signs off before they arrest you. That's not how this works. And so therefore it's the same concept. Border Patrol is there. They're stationed. They're watching someone invade our country. They do not need, that's just common sense. It has nothing to do with being Republican or Democrat or anything like that. The only reason someone would be opposed to that is if they literally hate our country and are trying to work to sabotage our country and help people invade our country. That's literally the only reason you would be opposed to Border Patrol. I'll be honest with you. I believe that arresting is too nice. I'm not even going to say what I think should happen, but I think we ought to declare an invasion and send in armed military to the southern border and go ahead and put out a statement. Anybody who even attempts to invade our country is going to be treated as an enemy combatant. And, whatever happens from there, you can imagine. But that's what I believe. And I've been very vocal about that for a long time now. And I think if you did that for a couple days, I believe it would be, I believe you would see this whole thing just come to an end in terms of invading our country. But that's what needs to happen as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we can't play these games with these courts for much longer. Trump's talked about possibly suspending habeas corpus, and I think the time for that is coming very, very quickly, especially if we see more of these activist judges trying to sabotage our country. Body cam footage of Maryland dad, Abrego Garcia, released, and Democrats look like imbeciles. Well, I think the second part of that statement there, that just kind of goes without saying at this point. They always look like imbeciles. But let me actually, I got a video here I also want to play. And Derek, this is his wife's statement in court, correct?
Yeah. So hold on. So this body cam footage right here that we're just talking about was obtained by Fox News. Jesse Waters did a whole thing on it. In that footage, they show that he is driving. They put extra seats in the van. Okay, like they talk about that in there. Like there was extra seats, like the vehicle, the truck, whatever they're in. I believe it was a van. Had extra seats installed in it so they could haul more people. No single person. It was like a very long drive from wherever to like Texas. Was whatever they claimed they were doing. It was a very, very long drive. Not a single person had luggage. Not a single person had an ID. None of those things. He's driving on a suspended license, by the way, and it admits to that. And another officer comes over and they're talking, and he says, "You do realize that they're this is human smuggling that they're doing right now." And that it was very obvious that that's what was taking place here in that video. They called ICE. You got to remember, this is in 2022, so this is under the Biden administration. They called ICE to come and get them, and ICE never showed up. So ICE just never. They called and said, "Hey, we've caught somebody here. They're smuggling. They're human smuggling, human trafficking. We need you to come and get them." And ICE just never showed up. So that's a big part of the story too, that I'm not hearing a lot of people discussing in terms of the body cam footage. So you want to comment on that before we jump into the other video?
He was probably on ICE's payroll. He was probably smuggling these people for an NGO. Well, or TDA or MS-13. I'm pretty. But yeah, we know this has been going on. We know Biden's ICE was basically there to be Uber for illegal aliens. So they were probably like, oh yeah, well, this guy's just doing our job for us. Let him have it.
But yeah, absolutely. So this other video we're getting ready to play, we actually have the video to play for you guys. So I won't get into a whole lot of detail about it. This was obtained by USA Today. Something else I want to point out that I haven't heard anybody else mention, and I've looked to see if anybody else has caught this the same way. So a few days ago, Hakeem Jeffries came out and basically ordered the House Democrats to stop going to El Salvador, to attempting to meet and with Garcia, and to stop talking about him, essentially. And now this video comes out, this audio, I should say. I have to think that someone within the media tipped off the Democrats that this was coming out so that they could try to, quote unquote, get ahead of it. I really believe that. I don't know that, but I believe that when there's smoke, there's fire. But anyways, this is actual audio from a court. Okay, this is not like some random person. This is from the court of Garcia. Abrego Garcia's wife is speaking to the judge in a courtroom, and you can hear in her own words as she speaks about him beating her. And I'm not going to say anything else. You guys can, because you can just hear it from her. There's no disputing this. You can hear it from Garcia's wife yourself.
Here we go.
Came to fill out a protective order. I think it was in December. But I didn't show up to the court because his family washed my brain telling me that his dad was sick and not to do it. So I didn't do anything. But after that, it was I would call the police. I have a lot of police reports, and I kept trying to get to the door basement to try to open the door, and then he pushed me. So then when I was able to go outside to get a phone, I called 911 from a disconnected phone. Now they took a long time to get to the house. It was probably 20-30 minutes. So I saw a neighbor walking his dog, and I opened the door and I was like, help. And then when he heard me, he grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. And then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me. And then last Saturday for my daughter's birthday party, before I went to my daughter's birthday party, he slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
Unbelievable.
That's the Democrat Party for you right there. I mean, that's who they're propping up. That's their hero. That's their new George Floyd, if you will, of the Democrat Party. This is absolutely despicable. But at the same time, I don't know why we're shocked. We're talking about the same party who is supporting men pretending to be women and beating them up in sports and everything else. It's exact same thing here. But you don't have to take anybody's word for it. This is her speaking to a judge under oath, I'd imagine, speaking to a judge on the record, and it's continuous. This is a cycle. I'm not even saying it was okay if it happened one time, but this is next level. This man is not a good person, regardless of whether he is here legal or illegal, which we know he's here illegally. But despite all that, he's not a good person. We don't want these type of people in our country.
No, and this is the hill the Democrats have chose to die on, is defending monsters like Abrego Garcia. But they've got nothing else. They've got nothing left. We keep saying, they've shown over and over again that they will side with America's enemies, side against the interest of the American people, over and over again, regardless of the issue is, regardless of how big the monster is that they're defending, that this is the hill they're going to die on. I mean, it's sick. It's disgusting. It's not going to change. And unfortunately, our media just goes along with it every time, and they wonder why their credibility is in the toilet. It's because every time they run a hoax, it then gets uncovered, and just a little bit more of their credibility chips away, and they don't have much left. They really need to reconsider what they're doing, both for their own sake and for the country's sake. Because sowing division and trying to prop these people up, these monsters up, is not doing any of us any favors. Let's go ahead and jump to our next story, though, here. Trump goes nuclear in late-night Truth Social post, torches radical Democrats for weaponizing impeachment again, demands GOP expel corrupt leftist lawmakers. And tell you what, I'm all there for it. These guys want us to cry, claim impeachment. I mean, I listened to this guy's 7 impeachment charges. Half of these don't, in my opinion at least, wouldn't even qualify as, high crimes or misdemeanors. So therefore impeachment shouldn't even be an option. But we all know these people are delusional, and their allies in the media will back up what they say no matter what, with no skepticism. But yeah, I'm there for it. Some of these people do need to be tossed from the caveman to whatever this guy's name was that just filed the last 7 articles of impeachment, which again aren't going to go anywhere. But I do like that they want to keep Trump's reputation there as the reigning impeachment world championship.
Well, and I said it the other day. We know that the Democrats knew that there was no way that the impeachment gets through the House, let alone a conviction in the Senate. This guy was $800,000 roughly in campaign finance debt. So I believe that this was just a fundraising mechanism for him to alleviate a lot of that debt. That's what I believe. It's funny though that let's just talk about the Democrat. This is how crazy this impeachment suggestion, I guess you could say, is. As of yesterday, I haven't looked today, but as of yesterday, there were at least 3 Democrats who had already said that they were not going to support the impeachment either. So, I mean, they don't have all the Democrats on the same page in the House with this impeachment. This whole thing is absolutely correct. My opinion is, I don't know. I would imagine they polled it and realized that this was not a very popular issue. So then they started dropping like flies on that. And like I said, there's at least 3 Democrats who've already said that they're not going to support this either. So the whole thing is absolutely just bonkers at this point. But at least the Democrats are working. They're working against us, but at least they're working. Our Republicans are too busy on vacation, sitting around twiddling thumbs, not doing anything, taking pictures and doing media interviews and all that stuff. It's very frustrating. So I'll give the Democrats this, that at least they're working, at least they're fighting. We can't say the same about the Republicans at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you realize if they would just do something, seize the momentum, how much we could actually accomplish right now if they were willing to fight in both the House and the Senate instead of being the pansies that they are. If they would take up some of these executive orders, put them into law, and pass that through the House, even if it was getting stalled in the Senate, at least it's doing something. And you'd be forcing, again, the Democrats to vote against the American people's interest over and over again, and forcing their allies in the media to continue to carry water and cover up for them. Guys, we got to take one more quick break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure for this, I hope I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the programs on our network is by supporting our sponsors. So please go to lutfstudio.com, buy yourself a unique, handmade, one-of-a-kind piece of art from Annie Cyrus. She should have some new pieces. If they're not already listed, they should be up on the site soon. You guys are really going to like some of these. It's a unique gift you can hand down. It'll become a treasured family heirloom. So again, go to lutfstudio.com and help support Annie Cyrus. She does a lot of work here behind the scenes, making everything happen here at Ex American News. And she has a great program of her own called Live Up to Freedom, which you can catch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit here. CNN shocked to find out Americans still prefer Trump to Kamala. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and play this clip for you so you guys can see for yourself.
Who would be doing a better job as president? Guess who comes out on top? Within the margin of error, but comes out on top. This looks a lot like the election result, right? Trump 45%, 2 points ahead of Harris at 43%. 12% say they'd be doing about the same. But this is the key nugget here. It's not just about regretting that vote. It's literally saying who would be doing the better job right now. And Trump continues to score a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris. This looks a heck of a lot like the election result. We have just seen this in poll after poll after poll.
Harry Enton's great. And man, I hope this guy's got good security, or the other hosts at CNN are going to stab this guy to death in the parking lot one day.
I would love to see them update that poll after Kamala Harris just made her first public appearance post the election the other day. If there was anybody who had even remotely started to regret their vote for whatever reason, or maybe like some of these squishy people, maybe they're leftists and just voted for Trump, I would say that there are. Sorry, guys. I would say that they, after seeing Kamala the other night, that they have reconfirmed that they made the correct decision, because she is just a total moron in every aspect.
Yeah, and this is the other thing I think about when I see something like this is 6 months of endless propaganda against Trump and every official in his administration. I mean, I just saw another story. We're not going to get to it today, but Pete Hegseth has had 100% negative coverage from the dinosaur media. Elon Musk, I think it was either 95 or 96% negative coverage. He had a great tweet about it that Hegseth had beat him. He had even a higher score than he had. But yeah, 6 months of this and the needle hasn't moved. This shows you how ineffective their propaganda apparatus has become, since so many people have lost trust in the media, that the only people watching now are these Democrat sycophants that are just going to believe whatever the mainstream media tells them, because the lies are more comforting to them than the truth. And they apparently want to destroy America just as much as the media and the rest of these globalist Democrats want to. But, again, I'm not surprised, because I think most people have woken up to just how bad the propaganda is within our country.
Thaddeus says, "I'm shocked that they're shocked."
Yeah,
that's pretty spot on, honestly. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean that's exact. And then Dan Dreyer says America dodged a nuclear bomb with her, which is 100% true. She is absolutely terrible. And I'll say this: CNN has surprised me. They're still CNN. But I don't know if it's Scott Jennings being on there on the network and them getting such good feedback with him being on the network. I don't know if that's what has really led to this, but surprisingly, they have been. I'm tasting throw up in the back of my mouth when I say this. They have actually been willing to cover some of these things, whereas during the first term, there's no way they would have completely ignored that poll. There's no way that they would have even covered that, or they'd have found some other obscure poll that nobody's ever heard of and used that one instead. So there's something fascinating going on at CNN right now. I don't know if it's just because, of survival and lack, afraid of losing and going bankrupt. I don't know if that's the case. I have no, because they've lost so many viewers. But there's something going on at CNN right now. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but it's kind of interesting to me.
Well, it probably is survival, but it would be nice to see them make a shift and just have, even slightly fair coverage. Get a few more people on besides Scott Jennings that are willing to tell the truth or push back against their narrative. And, maybe they could regain some of their audience again. CNN's always been a leftist mouthpiece, but it's gotten worse and worse the longer that they've been on air. And it's really unfortunate, considering what they started as and what they've turned into today. Lou Dobbs is rolling in his grave.
Terry brings up a good point in the chat. Terry says, unless you guys are showing us the clips, no one is watching them. And to be honest with you, that's the truth. We do you guys a really good service by having to bleach our eyes every night after watching CNN to find clips to bring you guys here on the show. So hopefully you guys appreciate the torture that we go through to find the few small little clips to bring.
Yeah, maybe that's what caused my cataracts, watching CNN and MSNBC. All right, Chuck Schumer brings up Trump's approval rating when faced with his own tanking numbers, claims polls come and go. And guys, I'm just gonna play this clip for you because this is great.
Polls this week show Trump has the lowest 100-day approval rating since they started polling 80 years ago. The lowest. Yes.
There's a poll out today that has your approval rating lower than any other congressional leader at 17%. Are you concerned that you may be a liability for your party?
Polls come and go. Our party is united. We're on our front foot. We're stepping forward, going after Trump, and having real success.
It's hilarious.
My favorite part of this is that this was not like a separate interview. This wasn't like later in the day or days later. Like this is literally, he says that. And then just a minute or so later, he gets asked that question. He does a total flip flop on his, that. That's what's funny to me on that whole thing with him.
Oh, you're right. It's hilarious. And the other thing, as Trump's pointed out, is these polls that they're using in a lot of these networks now, for whatever reason, they're shifting back and oversampling Democrats again to get the results they want at a time when Democrat approval is at an all-time low, somewhere between 21 and 23%. But they've got to tote water for their boys. They're not there to tell you the truth. They're there to tote the narrative, the deep state narrative, and carry water for the Democrats. And that's all they've got left. And until they learn their lesson, they're going to continue to sink. Trump DOJ asked Supreme Court to weigh in on judicial fight over temporary protected status for Venezuelans. At some point, Trump's going to have to just start ignoring these illegitimate rulings from the courts and take it all the way to the Supreme Court, or do like he's doing now and ask for an intervention, because they're literally standing in the way of things that are either powers clearly designated for the president, like who he hires and fires, who works within all the organizations under the executive branch. And they're clearly serving against the interests of the American people, fighting for the rights of criminal invaders that are here, the right for to continue to trans children. They're clearly on the wrong side of the law, the wrong side of history, and something needs to be done about it. We've got to put a stop to this, because right now their entire plan is just to prevent Trump doing the things that he was elected to do and using the courts illegitimately to stand in his way.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's going on here. And to be honest with you, it's sad as I don't fully trust the Supreme Court right now. I mean, I don't trust Amy Coney Barrett or Roberts. We're like all holding our breath every time there's some sort of ruling coming out as to whether one or both of them is going to side with the Democrats on one of these issues. So, it might, I don't know. I just don't trust the Supreme Court. But I want to give a really quick shout out to a new person over here in the Rumble chat. We got Cool Frog over here in the Rumble chat. Appreciate you for tuning in. Sean says that, or obliviously actually says schmuck tumor. I like that a lot, actually. I'm going to use that. And we're talking about Chuck Schumer. And then Sean says Schumer looks like an alien, which I have to agree. He does look like a very creepy, weird alien. And then Terry over here says illegals have no constitutional rights. How hard is that? And that is the thing. And that's why I think President Trump is wanting the Supreme Court to to make a ruling on, and you're 100% correct. We've kind of elaborated on that on the show in the past. If someone is in this country legally, but they're not a U.S. citizen, but they're here on a work visa, student visa, or whatever, then as long as they're here legally, then yes, the Constitution does apply to them if they're here legally. But if they are here illegally, then no, they don't have any constitutional rights. I don't know. I'm with you, Terry. I don't understand why this is so hard for people to grasp and understand. And I've got a very, very extreme example that I love to use because it really I think it proves the point. So let's just say that China decides to invade America and they land their soldiers on the beaches of California. The moment their feet touch the sand, they now have constitutional rights. That's what the left is saying right now is, those people are here illegally, whether they're armed or unarmed, they're here illegally. They're invading our country one way, a little bit different way under that scenario. And I know it's an extreme scenario, but that's essentially what the left is saying, is once their feet touch American soil, that they now have constitutional rights. That is so stupid to even think about that. So it's very clearly and obvious to anyone with common sense, which most Democrats do not, that anyone who is here illegally does not have constitutional rights.
Yeah, I mean, this is their whole game right now. They're trying to misconstrue constitutional rights and due process. That right now the media and the Democrats want you to believe that every illegal alien is entitled to a jury trial before they leave. That's not how it works. Due process is different depending on who you are, what the circumstances are. Again, like if you're somebody that's out on parole here, a U.S. citizen, if you do things to violate your parole, you don't get another trial. You get thrown back in jail for the rest of the time that you have, and then you serve that until either you're released again for good behavior. Maybe they don't make you do the 5 years hanging over your head. But there's not another trial, and that's what these invaders are entitled to. At best, they're entitled to they call it a hearing, but it's really just a meeting with an immigration official, and this can be an ICE agent who determines that they are not here legally, and therefore deportation is the next step. Doesn't mean they get to go talk to a judge or get a jury impaneled and a trial. Due process is different depending on what your status is here, and that's always been the case. This isn't something new. This isn't Trump changing the rules just to abuse all these, people that came here peacefully looking for a better life for their families. No, this is always the way it's worked, and changing it doesn't make any sense. It's just a way, again, to ensure these invaders are here longer, leeching off your tax dollars, committing more crimes, taking your jobs, and just continuing to destroy our country.
And that's what it all comes down to right there, destroying our country. These people hate our country. They hate America, what it stands for. And that's exactly what they're trying to do, is they're attempting to destroy our country. And it's sad that so many people stood by for so long without saying anything about it and allowing it to happen, and allowed it to get to the point that we're in the first place. But it's kind of like that warm frog in the water. They just kind of turned it up a little bit at a time. I believe that after Obama, that they went a little too far, too fast for the American people. And I think that COVID was the same situation. I think that had the Democrats continued to be patient, not just the Democrats, I should say the left, who hates our country in general. I think if they had continued to be patient, and like the things that they did during 2008, for instance, if they were just now doing those things today, and if they waited another 20 years, I think that they would have won this battle. I really do. I think that they just went a little too soon on some of these issues, and I'm thankful that they did. But yeah. I really believe we were that close to losing our country. I believe they just got a little impatient here at the end of their little thing of destroying America.
Agreed. Let's try to sneak one more story in here before we wrap up. American Pravda. Trump signs order ending taxpayer funding for NPR and PBS. Yeah, speaking of leeches, this should have happened a long time ago. Again, these organizations, maybe... I can't disagree. Back in the 60s, there was probably a need for PBS to bring programming out to small towns and around the country, and bringing some shows, Sesame Street, when it was founded, wasn't quite as a communist as it was today, and other programs that they have on there. But now it is just a weaponized tool of the left that, once again, we're funding because they can't get their own people to fund something like this. That without tax dollars, it would just implode. So yeah, we should pull all their funding, and they can go be communists on their own dollar.
Well, that's a fact. I've been saying this for years. You can go back and check my stuff. I've been begging to defund NPR and PBS. Even if they were not doing any of these nefarious things, we should defund them. They no longer serve a purpose. At the time when they first came out, in theory, you could say it was important. There were only like 3 channels on the TV, and there was very little media, and it was a way to get some of this out to people who maybe couldn't afford to have those things that were probably essential at the time. But even if they weren't doing these nefarious things, it was way past time to defund them. I mean, there's a million channels out there now. There's the internet. I mean, there's no reason to continue doing this. And then the fact that they were doing the things on top of it just makes it even more reason. So this is awesome. Now we need Congress, our Republican-controlled House and Senate, to go and actually pass a bill making this official law so that they are defunded for forever. That's what needs to happen next. But will it happen? Probably not, but that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, well, you're right. They're going to sit on their hands. And unfortunately, again, I don't know what we can do to get both the House and the Senate to find their balls and get find some courage. Because, again, I don't want this to all be for nothing or mostly be for nothing at the end of these 4 years. Otherwise, it's going to be right back to the status quo. If, personally, I do think the next president will also be another conservative. It's going to be J.D. Vance or somebody else. That the Democrats, I don't see them repairing themselves by the midterms, and certainly not by 2028. But guys, unfortunately, we are out of time for the day. So please like, share, and subscribe. Check out our Twitter account too today. We'll have postings on when we'll have that event coverage up from the border event in Chicago. It'll be sometime tomorrow. I just don't know exactly what time yet. And we may also have another special event on Sunday. So keep an eye on our Twitter account. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. We'll be back on Monday with even more.